For more on Obama's visit to Germany and his speech, I spoke with Bruce Stokes of the Pew Research Center, which has been tracking the president's popularity in that country. I asked him about the smaller venue the White House has chosen for President Obama's speech this week.
It's probably not a surprise that the White House and the Chancellor's office have set it up this way so that it's the space that he's going to be in Berlin is contained so that it'll look like it's full even if it has less than 10,000 people in it. There's probably no way he could have gotten the huge crowds that he did when he was this rock star running for president in 2008. And I'm sure that the White House didn't want to have any comparisons made visually anyway. That said and done, our surveys show that the German people, 88% of the German people, still like his handling of international affairs. He hasn't really fallen off much in popularity in that regard in Germany since he was elected. He's actually not fallen off as much in Germany as he has, say, in Britain or France. And he still gets, 88% is a figure that any politician would die for.
There's a journalist recently in Germany who said that average Germans, though, these days are at best mildly disillusioned and at worst deeply angry with the promise of Obama. Not necessarily the man, but the promise. Can you talk about that?
Sure. We did a survey right after he was elected the first time. And people had sky-high expectations all over Europe, including Germany. For example, everyone thought he was going to fix the climate problem. Well, if anyone knew the U.S. Congress, it was pretty sure he was not going to fix the climate problem in the United States. We can't even convince people if there is a climate problem in the United States. And so then we did a survey 4 years later, and people were disappointed that he hadn't fixed the climate problem. They were disappointed that he hadn't fixed the Middle East problem. They were disappointed that he had acted unilaterally in foreign policy, which is what they criticized Bush about, and then expected Obama to do something differently. So you're right. I think there's been a dramatic drop-off from expectations, but those expectations were probably in some cases very unrealistic.
Well, I think initially people would have thought more contrast Bush and Obama
Right.
instead of compare Bush and Obama, and yet there's a poster out showing Martin Luther King, "I Have a Dream," and below him a picture of Obama, "I have a drone," which kind of gets at the heart of the fact that they kind of thought those kind of policies would go away, and they have not.
And we see in our survey that Europeans are overwhelmingly opposed to the drone program. It's one of the signature aspects of American foreign policy that they like the least. And what's also interesting is we have this incredible gender gap on the drone issue, which we don't see in other surveys, where European women are particularly driving this anti-Obama policy sentiment, which is ironic because we know in the United States that women actually favor Obama more than men.
The leaks from Edward Snowden, also talking about the most recent one about the G20 summit, that the leaders being spied on, all of this. Is there a drip effect of all these kinds of stories that kind of percolate out, and is that damaging him as well?
What we do know from other surveys in the past is that Europeans see the privacy issue much differently than the U.S. does, and that they are much more worried about privacy than we are. Especially the government and business having data about them as individuals. And so one would assume that this will have a corrosive effect on the U.S. image.